You would think if people asking for the economy to be opened up, they're yahoos. Well, you're also yahoos if you congregate like this, regardless of the cause, but I don't think the Premier is going to call out those folks.
No, the Premier's not going to call out folks like myself because of my skin color or yahoos, because then he would be mobbed and labeled as a racist, obviously him being white himself. So he's going to pander and convince people that protesters are good. As long as you support Black Lives Matter, don't shout, don't yell, but you could probably break things and maybe not.
David Menzies for Rebel News here at Queen's Park in Toronto. Well, folks, it's week number 7 of the protest movement that is urging Doug Ford to open the economy as in fully. Now, of course, many of these people were labeled as a, quote, bunch of yahoos, end quote, by the Premier on the first week of these protests. That's because they weren't practicing social distancing etiquette. But, funny thing is, in the city today, there's 2 other mass gatherings. They're all about looking for racial justice in light of the George Floyd murder in Minneapolis. And there won't be any social distancing practiced at those marches either. I just wonder if Premier Ford is going to call the members of those marches a bunch of yahoos too, or is there a double standard? And also, I'm going to find out from these protesters here, the Queen's Park ones, what service they miss the most as we enter into the 3rd month of this Wuhan virus lockdown. Let's see what they have to say.
Boom.
So a constant at these protests is, of course, Vlad. And Vlad, you're wearing your Hugs Over mask.
100%.
And, it's funny. After the first week of this is the 7th week of these protests.
Yes.
Doug Ford, of course, labeled you and the people here as a bunch of yahoos.
Yep.
Now, we have a congregation of people marching for racial justice.
Very important cause.
Yes, they're
Very
assembling at Trinity Bellwoods Park. I don't think they'll be obeying the social distancing protocol rules. Do you think the Premier will call those people a bunch of yahoos?
I think that's not going to happen. In fact, we have a lot of media now showing up that government officials actually specifically saying that they're not going to issue any tickets to people during those protests. And now, if you want to really have a great example of social division created and actually supported by the government, I don't see any better example than that.
What about yourself, ma'am? Do you think Premier Ford will call this other group marching on the legislature a bunch of yahoos?
Probably not. He's probably going to be scared of being called politically incorrect. So, no, it's just for us.
They're not going to touch them because, it's racial injustice, and apparently COVID does not exist. COVID has a way of, figuring out who are Black Lives Matter protesters to freedom fighter protesters. So they're going to leave Black Lives Matter protesters and black people like myself alone. COVID's not going to affect us, but it's going to affect the freedom protesters are spreading it.
We've been here for 7 weeks. We've been talked down. We've been called irresponsible. We've been called that we're not taking this seriously. And then you have somebody else who's definitely wants to support an important cause like we discussed, but they've been supported. In fact, the governmental officials actually participate in their movement.
Several yahoos would have protested if they could have found the right arguments, Animal Farm, and of course you're referencing the George Orwell novel, sir. Do you think, depending on what you're protesting, that determines whether or not you're a yahoo in the eyes of the Premier?
Yes, I think he has double standard. But I think this is not good to call somebody yahoo, and I think he kind of stay away from it now.
I'm very proud to be one of the yahoos there, standing for my rights. But again, he's just a political puppet. He's nothing like his brother, who actually would take a stand and mean it. He's just a liberal puppet, like the rest of them.
What concerns me is the sort of corporate sponsorship of the sort of political, social issues of race. For some reason, that gets everybody's blessing. But when people come out and stand up for their country and their liberties and their civil liberties, then suddenly we're enemies of the people. I don't get that.
What do you account for such a double standard?
Again, the hypocrisy of this government is incredible. We were here on Tuesday and Wednesday when the Ontario Parliament legislation was in session, right? And what they did is we actually had a Randy Healer, independent MPP, wanted to have an amendment passed through that actually would require accountability from this government to actually answer questions exactly why they're imposing the measures that they're imposing. And guess what? They voted against this. And not even that, they actually voted in secrecy. So that vote wasn't even counted which of the MPPs voted against this. So if you're going to call somebody not having integrity or being completely responsible, those people need to look in the mirror.
Drop it low. What's up? What? Yeah.
Do not let these political parasites tell you how to live your life.
Well, the Queen's Park protesters are now marching down Church Street. This is where you'd see the Gay Pride Parade in a non-global pandemic time. Of course, the Gay Pride Parade has been canceled like so many other things in Toronto. But this is kind of the same thing, except minus the water guns and naked dudes. What part of the economy that is still shut down do you most miss? Like, what is your number one longing for?
Well, thank you for asking the question, and I'll do a two-part answer to that. First of all, and this is really important for people to understand, the priority for this government, and as much as I love animals, they open dog parks and they open grooming places for animals. However, children's playgrounds still remains closed, and the grooming places for people still remain closed. This does make no sense whatsoever.
Kitty cat salons, they're already open, but you can't go and get the spa day, but Fido and Spot can.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Because dogs have more rights than humans.
The fitness industry has taken a ridiculous hit from that. Like a disproportionate hit in this whole economy is the fitness industry, and those are the ones that the government is supporting the least. And it's good for people's mental health, it's good for people's physical health. So what's going on here?
I actually miss actual healthcare providers. And you know who I call healthcare providers? Gyms, homeopathic places, chiropractors. Those are actually essential healthcare providers because people go to those places to gain their health. Unfortunately, a lot of those businesses have been misled by the government by giving those people false hope that we're going to open up soon, we're going to give you some incentives to pay your rent. That means nothing for those businesses. Those businesses are created to have to create a living for those people. That's their paycheck. So the gyms and all the wellness places must reopen immediately, and not with all the new norm that they're trying to impose where it's only 25 capacity limit that's going to be. That's not going to help those businesses either.
I really miss going into just a coffee shop and sitting down with my laptop and doing my work. And I don't understand at all why those places can't be opened. And there's whole industries that will never recover. You cannot have self-distancing and have subway trains being full and restaurants full and stadiums full. So we've got to get over this. And the science does not support what we're doing anymore.
Well, actually, I miss everything. I want to work out, I want to go to the gym, and my hair is really messy. I want to have a haircut. But most importantly, if they're trying to shut down every business, I would say it would kill a lot of small business. So people can no longer be independent. And at the same time, I think the entire world is trying to promote the basic income, the universal income. Like if we receive money from the government, it's like the communist system. And in order to receive money, we have no say, we are very dependent on the state.
Who do you blame most for the shutdown of the economy here in Ontario?
I don't know. I think there's bigger powers at work that they're somehow getting all the world to cooperate in this bullshit. But I think Ford is disgusting. He's been a disgusting disappointment. Like he's given us no date for a phase 2. He's given us no hope for that. And you have other provinces waking up and saying, "Hey, we got to open up." Quebec, which is in just as bad a position as we are, they're starting to open up. It's like we got to get stuff going here.
Well, folks, like my other Rebel News colleagues, Sheila Gunn-Reid and Cian Bexley, I love getting out into the field to cover things like, the mass protests that have been occurring lately. But sometimes people take advantage of our presence there by physically assaulting us. Well, we can't have that, so sometimes we have to hire security for our own personal safety. That's why if you can please visit journalistdefensefund.com, that's journalistdefensefund.com, make a donation so that we can pay security guards in volatile situations so that our personal safety is maintained in order to continue bringing you the other side of the story.